So hello guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at a game played at the World Amateurs Championship in Oman between Dadson Njoroge and Al Kawi Gamal. So okay, this game was so intense. The game was so crazy and complicated. I mean, when I was analyzing, I wasn't believing what I was seeing. I mean, there's so many chances. White had a billion chances to win the game. Black also had like insane chances, and I'm going to let you guys just check out the game, then decide for yourselves what is really happening here. So that's an open with knight to f3, just keeping the options open, and Al Gamal replied pawn to c5, maybe an invitation into the English pawn to c4, but then Dadson went with pawn to e4, transposing into a Sicilian. Pawn to d6, bishop to c4, knight to f6, knight to c6, pardon, and knight to c3. Knight to f6 now, castles, bishop to g4, and bishop back to e2, just breaking the pin. Pawn to e6 was played, and now Dadson played b4. This is the start of the craziness in this game. I mean, from here, it's just insane. I don't really understand what was going on between the minds of these players, but from here, I mean, you guys just have to check this out. So bishop takes on f3, bishop takes back, and knight takes on d4. What else is playable? Knight takes on d4 is playable, but then this just, equalizes the game. White can even take back, and white is now up a piece. So instead, bishop takes on f3 was played first, and after bishop takes back, you now capture the pawn on d4, and Dadson pushed pawn to e5, attacking the knight on f6 and also at the pawn on b7. So the opponent tried to reply to this, and he took back with the pawn. Dadson took on b7, rook to b8, bishop to a6, and now bishop to d6, just continuing with development. Pawn to a4 was played, I'm guessing trying to cement the bishop on b5. Castles, bishop back to d3, and in this position, I think black had a lot of initiative. I mean, you have first of all have to calculate what happens after pawn to e4. So pawn to e4, it's obvious that you cannot take, because takes, and after bishop takes, you just lose a pawn. Bishop takes on h7, king takes on h7, queen to h5, check, go back to g1, and now queen takes on e4. You look at the position, black has a beautiful pawn structure on the king side, and white has weaknesses on h2. The pawns are not really active. I mean, the pawn on c5 is really restricting white from, maybe white can play c3 and play b4, but then the pawn on c5 is sitting really pretty, stopping these pawns from advancing. So instead of capturing, you can maybe try and play something else like bishop to c4, and the game continues. I mean, anything here I think is playable. Knight can jump in, you can create some space for the queen to get into the game, and after bishop to c4, I think black has a very good control of the center with the pawn on e4, which is defended by the knight. I mean, the knight, also the other knight on d4 is sitting really pretty in the center. So I guess pawn to e4 was a very playable move. I think this was the move that black should have gone for from the start, but he instead played knight to d5, just giving away all the initiative that he had. Knight to e4 was played, which I think was an inaccuracy. I mean, what else can be played here? You can go back, I think, with knight to e2, try and exchange the knights. This is not ideal. Maybe exchange the knights. And okay, this again repairs black center. The position is really hard for white to play, and you're expecting pawn to e4 anytime soon. So maybe play rook here. After e4, you go bishop back to f1, and the game continues. But then this is a very strong center for black. So instead, knight to e4 was played, and now f5, pushing the knight away. Knight takes on d6, queen takes back on d6, and pawn to b3 was played. So Here again, you have to be really careful as white, because black has a lot of ideas in this position, starting with pawn to e4, bishop to c4. Once again, I mean, the bishop is just moving too many times in the opening. Rook to d6 and bishop to a3, a fateful mistake. So black is completely winning in this position. If you want to pause the clock and find it, you can do so, but the idea, I mean, just the idea is just really beautiful. You can pause the clock and try and find it. So for those who are calculating, if you found rook to g6, congratulations, you found the move that was played in the game, but this isn't the move that wins. Knight to f3 check is the win that is the move that wins the game for black. Because if you take now rook to g6 check, king to h1, and now rook to h6, piling up on the h2 pawn and threatening mate in 1. So what does white have to do to prevent this? Maybe play f4, but then after queen takes on f4, the game is just completely lost. You can't really calculate. It's mate in 3, but it's because, you know, white has to maybe give up some silly pawns and try some ideas that he shouldn't even be talking about. But the opponent Gamal didn't find it, played rook to g6 instead, which is still keeping advantage. It's not bad at all. And here you have to calculate and check moves like queen takes on d4. Is it playable? So let's see. Queen takes on d4, rook takes on g2 check, king takes on g2, knight to f5, knight to f4 with check. I mean, where does the king go back to? Maybe king to g1, and now you take back with the queen. If you look at the position, I mean, black is just storming through. This is insane activity, and black is going to win this game in a few minutes, in a few moves. So we've seen that queen takes on d4 doesn't work. After rook to g6, queen takes to d4 doesn't really work. So what else can you play? You can choose to play something like pawn to g3, but then again, after knight to f3 check, king somewhere maybe, and now rook to h6. Black has a lot of pressure on the h2 pawn. You have to start defending it, start moving, and now moves like knight to or even rook to d8 first, and then knight to f4 with check, and the position is just crumbling for white. So what else is playable in this position after rook to g6? You can try and push f4 immediately just to block the diagonal, but again, that is still losing. So instead, Dadson played rook to h1. Again, what is that to be played in this position? Is rook takes on g2 playable? Let's see. Rook takes on g2. King takes on g2. You can choose to play knight to f4. Knight to f4, I'm guessing. Okay, this just gives advantage back to white. What else is playable in this position? Maybe f4, or the position is really confusing. I have no idea what's going on after rook takes on g2. So what instead can be played? Can knight to f3 still be played? I have no idea. Again, rook to h6 again is really strong, because now if you play g3 trying to cut the queen off from the attack on h2, knight to f3 is playable. Knight to f3 is playable. Where does, you know, the king go? If you play, you can't really play h3 or h4. If you play h4, just rook takes on h4 with check. You have to take back, and now queen on h2. Queen to h2 will be mate. So what else is that to play? Can you play rook to h3? Still no, because after rook takes with check, and rook on h2 with check again, where do you even go? That's mate. The position was so complicated. So instead of finding rook to h6, Gamal again, after king to h1, missed the winning idea for the probably the umpteenth time. He played knight to f5. Now knight to f5 just throws everything to white's. I mean, first of all, it kills initiative for black. Black is now, this is now a draw yeah, from what you have in the position. I think it's a draw, but with accurate play. And most of the time when players, okay, it's usually this, I had it on the C Squared podcast that many players don't really know how to handle when the momentum shifts in the game, because you might be winning, you'd be completely winning, but then again, when you miss the winning idea and the game comes back to being drawish, many people can't evaluate well enough and decide, and know that it's a draw and you're supposed to now just play for the draw. Many players still think that they're supposed to be winning and they try and over push for a position that's just, too solid, and most of the time what happens, you just continue losing the game. So after knight to f5, the position just shifted to becoming a dead draw now with accurate play. But then I'm guessing that Gamal didn't realize that. You might even have like a drawn position and feel like you're losing because you just lose all the initiatives that you had. So these are the problems with evaluation, and I think that's the place where many players really need to work on. Dadson instead played pawn to d3. Again, just missing the crucial moves that that should be played in these positions. I mean, now even rook to h6 is playable, knight to f3 is playable. I mean, everything is now, the advantage goes back to black. But then again, black misses the ideas and plays back knight back to d5. This, I mean, gives everything to white. Queen takes on d4, winning a piece, because after pawn takes, queen takes, rook to d8, and bishop to c5, the position is now completely lost for black. I don't see anything that black has. I mean, you can argue that black has this pawn structure in the center, which looks strong, but then none of them is a passed pawn, and they're not really going to be passed pawns. As you will see, Dadson will undermine them really efficiently. So knight was played back to b6, and the exchange, and rook to d1. King started coming forward, and Dadson tried to undermine the center with pawn to c3. So Gamal pushed, and pawn to f3, king to e7, takes, and rook to f4. Just, piling up on the pawns, and you can see now that the pawn structure that was there before is just completely shattered, and I think the game is now just completely lost for black. Rook to f6 is played, rook takes on e4, pawn to d2, rook to e2, rook to d3, just trying to hang on, and you're completely losing. You might as well just continue playing for a while and resign later. I mean, you never know what will happen. So rook takes on d6 check, king goes back, and rook back to e2. g5 was played, rook takes, the exchange, and now rook takes on d3, rook to d6, pawn to g4, rook takes on b6, rook check, king to g2, and after rook to a2, the game was won by Dadson Njoroge. So this game was insane. I'm going to post the PGN in the description, and you guys can copy and paste it into any analysis board that you want to use. But then this game was so insane. I mean, the ideas that were in this game that both players missed were just incredible. I mean, so many winning ideas from black. Black will have won this game from like move 10 or something. And this is what happens when you allow your opponent to get a lot of play. So yeah, that was the game between Dadson and Gamal. Hope you enjoyed it and have an exciting weekend.